This was not a thriller. Thrillers have to be thrilling, and this was not that. Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about Rabbit Hole by Kate Brodie. I seen a very nice TikToker recommend this book. She was really gushing about it and loving it, talking about thrillers, and I was really in the mood for thrillers. I went out and bought like 4 thrillers, some of which were her recommendations, and this is the first one I read because like it's the one she gushed about the most. And I didn't really like it. Sorry. This is the book I've rated the lowest so far this year. I gave it like 2.5 stars. Was it technically like a bad book? No, I don't think so. I think it was a very poorly marketed book. Rabbit Hole is about a woman named Teddy and her sister went missing 10 years ago. And on the anniversary of her sister's death, her dad commits suicide. And he had been going down this rabbit hole on Reddit, researching her disappearance and trying to find answers, and then eventually gave up. So this kind of raises interest for Teddy in trying to find the answers because she probably thinks her dad discovered something, really mind blowing or really devastating and is curious and is also still grieving her sister, grieving her dad. And it's all about how she goes down this Reddit rabbit hole trying to find the answers. So, from that, you think it's a thriller. What happened to Angie, the sister? Why did the dad kill himself? We go into it with a lot of questions, and you really want to find the answers by the end. Spoiler alert, this is a spoiler video. Not that there's much to spoil, because there is really no like big mystery that's solved. Now, this book wasn't marketed as like a thriller. It was marketed as a literary thriller. So, it's going to be not totally pacey, not totally commercial, and that's fine. I went into it knowing that. Last year, I read Calla by Colin Walsh, which is a literary thriller, and I loved it. Did a really gushing review about it. He did so many good literary techniques in the writing. It was so interesting, so many different perspectives, and it was a really good thriller. Like, there was a mystery that was solved, and it was satisfying and dark and twisted, and it was just a brilliant book. This one was literary, but it wasn't a thriller, and it wasn't even particularly literary in my opinion. It wasn't totally commercial, like obviously it is literary, right? But I didn't ever go, oh, that's a beautiful sentence, or that's a really interesting perspective, or I really like the prose and the order and what's been done and the structure. Like, I thought it was quite basic from a literary standpoint, at least compared to Calla, which did so much in that department. There were literary themes, like it's mainly a book about grief and the mania of descending into this kind of Reddit culture. It had stuff to say about memory and the slipperiness of it and misremembering lost loved ones. It also critiques this Reddit culture where everyone is down a rabbit hole trying to solve mysteries that have nothing to do with them, and it creates a culture of using other people's tragedy as entertainment. And Teddy, our main character, that is just her life, and she says it multiple times in the book of like, this is my life, and they're using it as entertainment. And I thought that was interesting. I think that is a really toxic element of the culture. But I also don't think it dove into this theme particularly well. I'm reading another book at the moment called Death of a Bookseller, about 100 pages in, loving it so far, and that deals with the same themes of tragedy being used as entertainment and this cult of seeing killers as like celebrities almost. And it does a much better job than so far in the first 100 pages. In fact, it did it within 20 pages very well, compared to this whole book. I think one of the ways in which this theme really falls flat is that our main character is very unlikable, and she descends into this mania because of like Reddit. But I don't think like her use of Reddit was shown particularly well by the author. You see her on message boards sometimes and replying to comments or saying like she spent hours scrolling on Reddit, but I don't really get the sense of her falling down Reddit rabbit holes and finding clues on there too much. Like, she kind of dips in and out at the beginning, but I never feel like she's going down like particularly crazy rabbit holes. She goes down a couple of like fairly rational rabbit holes, but that's about it. And also, she meets a real person on Reddit that she then hangs out with in real life, who's a younger girl, which is an odd kind of power dynamic at play. And then they both like follow threads in real life. So it doesn't really feel like she's really in the Reddit rabbit hole. I don't know. I just didn't really hit for me. I think if you're like want to write about going down Reddit rabbit holes, it would be better to go down the route of like conspiracy, satanic cults, and like going down really crazy paths, or like she was abducted by aliens. Because when you hear rabbit hole, you think like you're really going down into like Wonderland. Like it's gonna get weird. It's gonna get a bit spiritual, maybe a bit fanatical. But the thread she goes down is like the drug dealer route and the online OnlyFans kind of stuff, and her dad being an abuser potentially, and her running off to be the babysitter for her brother's kids. Like, these are kind of rational avenues for exploration. These are all things that could have happened. So I don't really think it's that much of a rabbit hole, honestly. And getting back to her being an unlikable character, obviously it's because she's grieving and she's, descending into some mania and doing questionable things. I get that. But it all really rubs me up the wrong way. She has this odd relationship with this 19-year-old girl, friendship kind of thing, that is very strange and very shady. She starts messing up at work and being a horrible teacher. She even brings a gun into school. She makes out with her boyfriend in front of everyone at the prom that she's chaperoning. She's just a hot mess in a really problematic way. She starts this relationship with this older man that she knew as a teenager, who loves her, falls in love with her for some reason, even though she's terrible. They have a lot of sex and it's really toxic. And she also starts to like drink a lot, and like her alcoholism fuels a lot of her bad behavior too. And her doing all of these things could have been interesting if we saw her go more down a rabbit hole, more down a conspiracy route of her losing touch with reality. But she doesn't really lose that much of a touch with reality, in my opinion. So I guess it just doesn't feel very earned for her to be acting so badly. The thing that upset me the most about this book was that she has this pet dog called Wolfie, who's an Irish wolfhound. He was bought as a puppy for her sister shortly before she disappeared, so her and her mum have a strong attachment to Wolfie, and they bring him to the vets at the beginning of the book because he has cancer, he has tumours all over his body, he's blind, it hurts to pat him, it hurts to stroke him, he has to lie down in the car, he has to be carried outside to the toilet and stuff, and it's really sad, and the vet's like, there's nothing more we can do. So they're like, okay, we'll just bring him home to like watch him waste away and die. And I was like, aren't you gonna like put him to sleep? Like that would be as an animal welfare professional, that would be the ethical thing to do. And I've just been through this with the dog that I live with, of like letting her go peacefully, and so it was quite a personal topic for me currently in the past few months. And then they proceed to spend time with this dog throughout the novel, and like I get they love the dog. They've just lost another person in their family and they can't face losing him. But he is suffering so much for the whole book. And in the end, well, I guess he's got a vet phobia, so they don't take him to the vet to euthanize him ever, which is a shame because that would have been more compassionate than what ended up happening. I think the final moment of like how he was euthanized, I won't say it here. Trigger warning, literally trigger warning. Uh, yeah, I won't say it, but if you don't like reading about animal death, this maybe isn't the book for you. I don't think that was technically unethical, but it went on for way too long. He was suffering for hours, and yeah, of course, she wanted to say goodbye. It took her a while to work up the courage, but yeah, it was just it was really sad. And Bill, the boyfriend, who's quite toxic, he even says like this isn't humane a quarter into the book, and the mum won't hear it. And I'm like, yeah, Bill, like I don't really like him. I don't really like any of the characters, but he was the most rational one, and he was right when he said it was cruel to let him go on and not put him out of his misery. They should have just let Bill with his guns do it then and there rather than her doing it. Um, Yeah, and I get that he was probably a bit of a metaphor of like she just can't let Angie die. She can't let go. She's still down this rabbit hole trying to solve it. And it's like she won't let Wolfie die in the same way that she won't just let Angie be dead. So I think that was symbolism. It was done for a reason, but I didn't like reading it at all. Um, because I don't think it's a good impression. I don't think it's. I hope everyone reading it can see how like messed up it is to let your dog suffer so much. And not only should he have been put down at the beginning of this book, he probably should have been put down like months before that because he already had tumors all over his body and it was sore to be touched. If you've got a dog, don't let that happen. Be more compassionate to him or her, even if it hurts you, breaks your heart. I know, really sucks, but don't be like this family, okay? Moving on, then the pacing of this book, it was also awful. We kind of just went from her spending time with her mum and Wolfie and that being a bit fucked up, and then her going to Bill's house and them having like messed up sex and her being a total nightmare. I won't go into detail, but she just does a lot of things to just purely be a bit vindictive towards Bill. And then her spending time with this young girl, where it's a really odd dynamic, and them not really doing a whole lot. And she just kind of rotates between these locations: the school, doing messed up stuff at the school, making dinner, drinking wine during dinner, and going on Reddit, and maybe occasionally some action of her investigating something. And the book just kind of goes round and round like that, and then it sort of ends. And it wasn't really thrilling or exciting to read. And that was probably the point. One of the parts I did like about the book was near the end, where she kind of comes up with two stories for Angie and what happened to her. She comes up with one story of her running away and having a good life somewhere else in Canada, and it's quite a happily ever after one where she's out there somewhere and she's doing okay. And then she comes up with the theory based on some of the things she's learned of, she went to this party, she went to this place, she had an overdose, and then she was disposed of, her body was disposed of, and it was never found, which happens quite a lot. People go missing and are never found, and that is Angie's case. And you're like, yeah, that the latter is probably true, the former is possible. Teddy can maybe tell herself the former to feel a bit better about the situation, but she's never going to get answers because this is real life and it's not a thriller, it's not a mystery, it's not wrapped up. And I think that was the whole point of the book, because it was critiquing, you know, real people's tragedies as a form of entertainment. So if it had been a true mystery and if it had given you all of the answers at the end and the mystery had been solved, it would have then become entertainment for us as a reader, and it would have kind of gone against the point and the main theme of the book. So I think that makes sense. But do I like it? Would I reread it? Would I recommend it? No. Because while I understand the sentiment and think that's so true, like we shouldn't be looking at real people's tragic cases, going down Reddit rabbit holes, eating popcorn, being like, try to solve this mystery, because that's really damaging to the real people who are affected by it. But at the end of the day, this is a book that is supposed to be entertaining in some capacity. And maybe if it had been marketed as just purely literary, a dark literary novel, I would have gone into it knowing, like, that's the point. It's not supposed to be entertaining, it's supposed to be a study of these themes. But it wasn't marketed like that. It was kind of marketed as a thriller. And I expected to be thrilled, and it wasn't. And therefore, I'm unsatisfied and disappointed. So I'm not going to sit here and say, this is a bad book, this is awful, but I didn't enjoy it and I don't feel satisfied. And I almost feel tricked into reading it because maybe it's been marketed as a thriller because it wants to call out people that find these things thrilling. But as a reader, I feel let down. I don't want to be like lectured to, because like I'm actually on board with that message and that theme, and I'm enjoying it in the book I'm reading now. But the book I'm reading now, Death of a Bookseller, that has that theme, is still very entertaining. So I think you can do both. I think you can like critique a topic while entertaining your audience, and you could have found ways to entertain the audience without having payoff in the mystery if that's what you really wanted. a lot more could have happened throughout the duration of the novel, besides her having disappointing sex, drinking wine, patting her cancerous dog that's suffering, and sleeping in an air mattress in an apartment with a 19-year-old, getting fired, getting a restraining order, being really problematic. I, yeah, this was not the one for me. But let me know what you thought. This was a Jeanette McCurdy like book club pick, so presumably a lot of people did like it. And this girl on TikTok who seemed lovely, she loved it. It was like her favorite thriller, and she gushed about it. So everyone is different, and I guess books like this are designed to be polarizing. So let me know what you thought, and let me know what you rated this book. I rated it 2.5 stars, and if I could, I would call it RSPCA on this book. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you like this book chat, and I'll be back next week with another one. Bye!